And we're back.
Oh, yeah.
MVP Sports Talk Radio, we're back. I don't know exactly what's been going on with the show here, but, I mean, this is weird. I can't get the stream up,
Super weird.
It's all finicky.
Yeah, I had it, and then it went away. Now
Thanks for tuning in, Tally. I know you don't know much about fighting, but that was, I don't know. I got a little nostalgia watching Tyson and Jones
much needed.
It just kind of struck home a little bit.
Much needed.
I mean, I was really, really young back in the 90s when he was still kind of fighting a little bit, but, I mean, man, it was fun. It was fun to watch. I don't think it was worth necessarily the $50 charge that it was for the pay-per-view, but all in all, I was satisfied with it. I really was. I thought they were competing. I thought they were going after it a little bit for their age, obviously, but it was fun. It was fun to watch for sure. So as we get back into it, it looks like we've got a caller coming in, and let's get him on here. Caller, you're on the air. I got a Christy Sorensen. How we doing?
Good. How are you doing today?
Good. You can't complain. We're living the dream here.
Amen. Awesome.
So what? It's so the stream's working? Stream's up and running?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Good.
Stream is working. I got the stream up. I just wanted to make sure that we had the stream going. And then, what's the name you have me under, real quick? I just want to make sure that it's
said
Blake.
just the caller ID said Christy Sorensen. That's all.
Okay, it'll be Blake.
Oh, Blake. Is this the guy with the podcast that Talis reached out to me about?
Yes. Yep. Talis did
okay.
send me.
So this was the guy I was telling you about.
I got you.
Yeah, okay. What's going on, man? Good to hear from you.
Nothing much. Sorry it took me a little while to get everything situated, but yeah, I'm here. I'm ready.
No, it's fine. We were gonna spend our first segment on the Tyson
and it turned into the whole hour.
And Roy Jones fight, and we were just gonna spend maybe 15 minutes on it, and it ended up being almost an hour because then we dove into the boxing and Jesus, freaking crazy. Bro.
Yeah, I was listening to the end there, and just one point. I'm not the biggest boxing fan. Lightweight division is pretty stacked right now. You got Lomachenko lost to Teofimo. If you had to give me $100 and say, Blake, put it on who you think the next guy up is, I think it's Teofimo, man. I think that kid's a stud.
Yeah, and I think you're not wrong with there being a lot of talent down there. I just think, and I guess probably
there's talent down there, right?
So I think,
but you got to know how to market it, man. Because there's guys like the three of us here, we know who they are.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But your average, everyday boxing fan that knows Pacquiao and Mayweather,
boxing
right?
as a whole,
they're not gonna they're not gonna know who these guys are.
I mean, I'm 25. Sorry, I forget your age, but I know you're a little.
I'm 29.
A little old. Yeah, 29.
Yeah, 29.
So we're in the same bracket, and I could pick 30 people I know that watch UFC just off the top of my head. Boxing, 5 or 6.
If that.
So that's their drawback.
Yeah.
I mean, I barely watch anymore.
It's a
demographic
demographic
market,
issue. Yeah, it's a demographic issue.
UFC's taking over. You've got instead of 2-3 minute rounds, you got 5-minute rounds.
But I think
you got 3 to 5 rounds.
Yeah, but the problem is there's room for both, right? You have
there is.
NBA,
absolutely.
NHL, MLB, NFL, soccer. They all compete just fine. NASCAR. You got the Truck Series. They all compete fine. They all do great number-wise consistently. I think the problem is the need for the pay-per-view events is an issue. You're always asking for money to watch, which is going to be a struggle. And maybe boxing decides to thin out the pay-per-view style, ramp up the sport, and then you integrate it back in. For a while, UFC put out a lot of free fights, a lot of free programs, spin-off shows, the Ultimate Fighter show. You got to ramp up the need. Then you can start asking for money, but you can't ask for money when you can't put out a real card.
True that.
And I mean,
100%. And you can't make a fight either.
Yeah, and I mean, you can, it's a charity event, so then people, you tune in for the nostalgia, but 9 times out of 10, if you have any other fighters on there, no one's tuning in. They got a lot of people buying that don't normally buy. I mean, I didn't really look at the pay-per-view numbers, but I would guarantee that 30 to 40% probably don't buy previous events, but they bought that event.
For Tyson?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah, gotta be.
And that's the issue that they have, is creating a consistent fan base. I mean, I don't even watch half the boxing fights anymore. It's just not enough there. So that's the struggle they have.
Especially for a whole card, too.
Yeah.
Just they're not filling out well for $60 or however much you got to pay.
Yeah, and I mean, I like your take on the lightweight division. There's talent there. You know, there's a good chunk of people that could probably put someone down on the mat.
That was another thing with the Tyson fight. Their prelims, those fights were actually kind of nice to watch. They were kind of entertaining.
Yeah, but you would never watch them if you didn't have the main card fight.
I mean, I didn't know who they were.
Yeah,
but I mean, they were entertaining to watch.
That's the problem. Is like, you know, your prelims for UFC, you don't know who they are, but you tune in because it's free, and then you tune in because you have a great couple fights or sometimes a fantastic card all the way down the board. You get, 5 or 7 great fights all night.
Right.
So you watch the prelims, and then you start to like some of these guys. With boxing, if you have a terrible beginning card, people might pay the $50 and tune in for the last fight or two.
Mm-hmm.
They don't watch the whole card. UFC, I go to, a couple of my buddies' houses, or they come over, you watch every fight, prelims and all. You sit down, you have some beers, smoke a couple cigars, you have pizza, whatever you do, and you watch the whole thing. Boxing is like, I'll tune in at some point and watch the main fight. That's the problem.
Yeah, I feel you. Okay, so we went super over on the last break, so I'm going to hit this real quick, Blake. Feel free to stick around, man. We're going to dive into the NFL real quick, just like a 2.5-minute spot here, so not long at all. 508. We still got one line open, so hit us up, 508-222-1320. We'll be right back. Yeah. Welcome back. MVP Sports Talk Radio, Wednesday nights. It is now 8 o'clock. We're 1 hour in. I honestly don't think 2 hours a week is enough, man. We need more. Yeah. We need a lot more. That's okay.
A lot more?
That's all right.
The problem is if we go earlier, you got to move nights. And I don't want to go
earlier. I guess so. Well, maybe we change Tuesdays.
We have a show right before. I don't know. With COVID, it's weird because we have to clean the studio.
I'll just tell work I'm getting out early. Let's do for like 4 hours.
What I'm saying is the show before. And that's a popular show before.
It is. I see. It's like, what is that? Steven the Medium?
Yeah,
or something?
He's a medium, man. It does like things over there.
Yeah, it's like real.
But
deep.
It's very, very popular in Attleboro.
Real deep. Yeah. Interesting.
When it first came out, they had 27 callers in the first 30 minutes or so.
What the heck?
Because that was back when I was doing the training to have the show here. So we were they were kind of talking about that show, how much it was pulling in. It's crazy.
Anyway, Blake, this radio station does a variety of different radio shows, and one of them's the Medium show that comes on before us.
Yes, I believe it's 5 to 6.
Yeah,
or so.
And they get a pretty decent following. I guess.
Yeah, you get a pretty good one. Yeah,
you gotta be.
You gotta have a variety.
You gotta have
it.
You gotta get into it.
Yeah, they don't discriminate or pick and choose here. Whatever you got, you pitch it to them. If they don't have it, or if it's a spot for it, hey. We're more national sports. I think Four Deep Sports is a lot more local.
They are local. And, they literally talk all local stuff.
Yeah. So, it works well.
Well, anyway, so I guess NFL time? Is it NFL time? Can we talk football now? Can we talk football now?
Yeah, I'm going to work on the lock of the week now.
You work on the lock of the week?
Yeah, we got burned
cool.
on the last one.
Yep.
Actually, I think we just struck out 0-2 on that last one.
So thankfully, I drive a work truck for a living, and I'm able to listen to a lot of radio and stuff. And my good buddy Talus hooked me on to this little podcast called Stack in the Box. And I took a little listen, and they're on Spotify. And what other platform are you on, buddy? You use Patreon, right?
Apple Podcast. Yeah, I do have a Patreon account. We're on YouTube as well. Just pretty much getting anywhere that our content can be out there. We're just trying to get it out there.
Mm-hmm. And I will say that I haven't listened yet. He sent me the link, and I will totally listen to that tonight.
It's nice. Like it's not
90% of my.
So it's not like 3-4 hours long, which is nice. He gets his buddy that chats in as well.
Yep.
And they pretty much, you said I think Talus said they do it Tuesdays and Fridays. I'm pretty sure Tuesday they go over what happened over the weekend, and then Friday they preview it. Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Right?
Perfect. Yeah.
Cool.
No, I'll have to take a listen and go from there.
So obviously we're in New England, right?
Yeah.
I mean, granted, I'm from down there in Tennessee, but we're up here. My mom's family's up here. I work up here now. I live up here, but we are Patriots fans. So the first thing we're going to dive into is that Pats-Cardinals game, right?
Yep.
So
100% fine with me.
Give me, Nick, hit me with it. Thoughts on the game?
I think it's
like, is it like we're playing well against the good teams, but we're losing against the crappy ones? Like,
that's Bill.
What's going on
Belichick,
here, man?
Though. That's Bill Belichick. I think the last X amount, however many years you want to go back to, they seem to always struggle against crap teams and do well against great teams. Part of it comes with, I think, over preparation. Right? Sometimes you prepare a little too much for a team like the Texans, and then you just crap the bed. But I think they executed what they needed to against Arizona, and like I said, I think the players that needed to perform are going to step up and do it. And yeah, I mean, you didn't see a lot out of Newton, but just all the pieces were kind of there, and I was happy to see them win without Burkhead because, like I said before, generally when Burkhead isn't in the game for a majority of the snaps, they do not perform well.
Yep.
I think it's a diversity thing, but yeah.
True that.
But overall, man, I'm happy. I think
you're happy. As a fan, you're happy.
Yeah, I think it's a good win. I think you contained a team well, or as well as you really can. And Gilmore stepped up like I thought he would. Like I told you that he had to come out and step up this week, or his value just tanks.
Gilmore's value's kind of tanked this year in general.
Debatable because, like I said last week, if he came out and performed in that game, everything else is irrelevant. What do you mean? What does he do against the Texans that some of the other guys didn't do, or what does he do against the Jets that some of the other guys didn't do? The game he didn't really miss any important game, and he came up, stepped up when he needed to step up against D-Hop and arguably the best receiver in the league, and performed well.
Yep.
So I mean, I think his value is still there. You can argue what's happening behind the scenes between the organization and him, and whatever else. But at the end of the day, I mean, he stepped up and performed. A couple flags, but I think the both of them, were just that nitty-gritty football. Very similar, movement between the two of them. This is a great matchup. That's the matchup you need in football.
It was.
So, I mean, I was happy overall with the performance.
Let me get an unbiased perspective from Blake. Because we're fans, obviously. We can see it, like, more as a fan, you can see it more intricately. They kind of dissect and nitpick and
so just because
how angry I am at this team.
Listen, Blake, what's your team?
I usually prefer not to say, but I'll go ahead and give it to you. The Minnesota Vikings. Okay. I am a Viking.
Oh, okay.
But I like that you tell me that because
now, are you from like that Tri-Cities area? Are you Bristol, Kingsport, Johnson City?
Oh no, I live out in California. My dad is born in Canada though.
So how do you know Talus?
Talus Fantasy Baseball.
Okay,
we have a fantasy baseball league together, and he really enjoys the podcast. So he's like, man, I'll put you on with these guys, let them know what you think. And I was like, yeah, that'll be awesome. But I can go back to your point about Gilmore and Hopkins. The first point, I'll comment on Gilmore's value. He has value, no matter what goes on this season, unless he turns into a shell. Because
obviously,
number one corners have a ton of value because one, they elevate your corner too, right? As we see with Darius Williams in LA, as Jalen Ramsey taking on that number one wide receiver helps him, and then Sherman, who can take away a whole side of the field. Now we'll get into the performance in this game. Very interesting. Because we got Gilmore, we have him going against DeAndre Hopkins. We would expect a lot of man-press coverage with Gilmore's kind of stereotyped as. It was a lot of cover three. I saw a lot of Gilmore turning his head, looking towards the quarterback, which is going to tell you it's a zone scheme. A lot of zone. which caused, like, every time, like, DeAndre Hopkins had, 5 receptions for 55 yards.
Yep.
And a lot of them were on, Gilmore turning his head. He's going into a 3-drop zone, and Hopkins just cuts it off for about 7 to 8 yards. Every other play, though, Gilmore was on him, doing a great job in zone, doing a great job in man when he had, 4 or 5 man press coverage reps. Overall, it was a phenomenal game from Gilmore. Awesome. And the interesting thing is, my buddy who I do the podcast with, Justin, he's very into analytics and stats and everything.
Right.
So he's a big Pro Football Focus guy. They graded Gilmore out as a 40 grade, which is not good at all. So
right.
Really weird, though, because I thought he had a good game. But Hopkins took advantage of the reps that he had there.
Yeah, and I think part of it, obviously you make a great point. So typically defense is like my jargon where I'm really into. I've always played defense and coached defense. So I definitely think part of it's gameplay. I think you have to pick and choose what you give them. So, you save your energy, you play a little cover, you give them 10 yards. Some of those little first down dive catches he got, you allow that. But then the other token is if we prevent the 70-yard or the 50-yard burst or the 30-yard burst, we'll eat a few of those 10s in the bigger picture of things.
Right.
So I 100% agree with that.
Yeah. So I think a lot of it comes to coaching, and I think they really ran that Baltimore scheme you saw last year. Obviously, they didn't win against. Oh, sorry, I have a random alarm.
What,
set.
You napping? Taking a nap? Setting an alarm?
My football auction, but there's not one tonight. Don't worry about that.
Okay,
Anyway.
Okay.
But no, so I think, they ran that same defensive scheme they ran against Baltimore. It's that preventive, we got to keep, we give them spacing, we allow for 10, we don't allow big plays, and we keep edge containment for, mobile quarterback because, we're not rushing, minimal pass rush with this defense.
Right.
So you just contain the edge and you don't allow him to get that space to want to run. And I think it worked well. And, some teams, if you run that, it doesn't work at all.
I'm with you there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, and they did a great job holding Kyler in check. He didn't have, I think there were only 2 plays that come to mind. One was a scramble. One was a play where he just runs around and finally is able to find somebody to pass. They did a good job keeping him in the pocket. And then even that D-line created that interception that they got, I think, in the second half. So overall, just a phenomenal performance and game plan from Belichick in the past.
Yeah, I mean, you get guys like Butler stepping up. I mean, Butler's been very minimal play-wise, for being in for how many snap counts. So for him to step up is big and to be relevant on a lot of the plays, definitely just a good, well-rounded game. I think finally they just executed, and, I don't know how much that speaks to, the rest of the season. I don't think that makes me hopeful for any kind of, long-full playoff run, if any. But, I think it's good to see that, the mentality and the coaching is still there and they can still be effective at what they put out with what they have. And I don't make excuses because what they have is totally on Bill Belichick's chest of, not drafting right and terrible contracts and terrible dead cap and just all this bottle up into 1 year. So, I mean, that's definitely not an excuse, but, he's doing well with the burden he put on himself, which is good to see.
Couldn't agree with you more, though. Bill Belichick, as the head coach, phenomenal. He hasn't lost a step. As the GM, though, there are times where I think he did a decent job in this draft, but we still have to wait for development. But the last couple of years, it's been, okay, the general consensus, well, what was that pick you made there? But, it's Bill Belichick. He'll figure it out.
Yeah, this guy will
he's not
work
able to figure it out.
Yeah.
Never been able to draft a wide receiver. I will never forgive him for N'Keal Harry.
I won't either.
Never.
Oh,
I will never forgive him.
That made no sense to me.
Never forgive him.
Sense because
See, so you're just tuning in too, and for what, the last 6 weeks, 5 weeks, I've just ranted about this and screamed about this and cried about this because I
could have wound up with AJ Brown, you could have wound up with DK.
What, 32 picks away?
Yeah,
separation between the two of them.
Guys they could have had.
Yeah, and then you give I remember sitting up. You didn't get him first round. I'm like, okay, whatever. Second round, and then you trade down. He's still on the block. You can get him. You trade down. I'll never understand it. I mean, I don't care. You can find defensive guys for the most part fairly easy throughout free agency.
Bill's defense to fit into his scheme. He can find anybody.
You can find anybody. You know who we can't find? Receivers. Aside from Edelman, which is the kind of diamond in the rough.
Yeah.
Right? Because you got just a punt returner and you make it into something. But defense, Butler from Popeyes, and you get all these random guys that you make happen. Dude, I don't care if you draft N'Keal Harry and DK Metcalf. If one of them doesn't work out, one does, I'm happy. But you just pick the worst option, and then you don't have a great defense to show for it either. So, you can't be like, yeah, we passed up DK, but, like, look who we have. You don't have anybody. Like, defensively, you have guys who are performing well, but you don't have, like, this blowout draft pick where you're like, thank God we got him over DK.
Right.
So,
I don't know. This game, it irked me so much because you know how big I am on Kyler. I love Kyler Murray. I love me some Kyler Murray. The man is entertaining to watch. He's super duper talented. He's progressing so much as a thrower, but like, it was this game. It was the Patriots, it was the Cowboys, and it was the Panthers game. Those three games where he kind of really fell off and wasn't really a factor. But there are some games where he can just literally take over and go to work and single-handedly win you a game, a la Seattle.
Yeah, it comes down to coaching, though.
Buffalo was a good
Seattle's
one, too.
Seattle's a hard one to take because Seattle's had the worst defense they've had since,
and I mean,
I don't even know how many years. Since
Kingsbury,
like
too, I think shot him in the foot a lot. Like, he had, especially in the first half, Kenyon Drake had a lot of success on the ground, I think, early in the game. And especially that second or third drive when D-Hop was going on those, like, 8-yard routes and stuff like that. Like, they shied away from things that they were successful on.
Yeah.
And our offense, Damian Harris with 14 carries, Cam Newton is absolute shell of himself. We can't throw the ball to save our life. Yeah. And ultimately, this came down to, this was, I think Bill planned for it too, it was a field position game. All of our points came off of short fields, like starting at the 50, starting at the 40, and mistakes that the Cardinals kept making and shooting themselves in the foot. Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, yeah, you can win games like that, but are you going to be competitive, and are you going to be a playoff team winning like that? Because realistically speaking, the Patriots have to win out to make the playoffs. Realistically, if you lose one game, you're probably done. Like, your percentages just go down the drain. So you have to win out.
It's going to be tough. I think maybe COVID helps you with Baltimore. Scheduling is going to be an issue there.
Like, the fact that we lose to teams like Denver and teams like Houston, right? The Chargers is no gimme on Sunday. Yeah. Absolutely no gimme. Like, I think the Chargers flying under the radar. Like, I think they're progressively, like, they'll be a good team a couple years down the road. I firmly believe that.
Yeah, I mean, you got a lot of issues there too. You got Eckler back.
I think they need to get rid of Anthony Lynn.
Yeah, Anthony Lynn's their coaching's awful. I think that's a big, big factor into why they're so bad.
Just watching Hard Knocks, I don't get a head coach vibe from him.
Because
he's like a defensive
Eckler just
line
came
coach
back,
to me.
and Eckler had a solid game against Buffalo. Herbert's obviously their quarterback of the future. He's looking phenomenal. Probably your Rookie of the Year favorite right now. They've got so many playmakers on the outside. Hunter Henry's a solid tight end. And defensively, I think on their back end is where their biggest issue is. But their front seven's solid, man. With Ingram and Bosa on each side, like, linebackers could probably use a little bit of work. But I mean, that team is set up for success in the future. Like, but the coaching just drag. Like, the NFL is one of those leagues where you can see such a talented team, and a perfect example of it is the Bucs. That's a perfect example. I think Bruce Arians is a shell of himself, and I think he's a terrible coach. That's just my opinion.
I don't think he's ever been that great.
And the fact that he's throwing Tom Brady under the bus week in and week out, like,
well,
I get
the problem is on a week Brady's good. It's Brady. Thank God we got him. And on a week Brady's bad. It's what is this guy doing?
He's literally throwing him under the bus. And like, I don't know. I think it's a little. I think it's a little different for me. Like, especially in the NFL, like, your head coach, your offensive coordinator, your coaches, when they're having interviews, you don't throw your players under the bus. You back them, right?
You know what the
you
problem
support
with that
them.
is?
You don't just blame them for. You don't just go out and blatantly blame them for the loss and the mistakes. Like, Tom Brady will do that on his own, but like as a head coach in the NFL, you don't throw your players under the bus like that, man.
Don't do it to
a
player who does know how to take accountability. Right, so you got a guy like Brady who does take accountability.
I think there's something deeper going on down there in Tampa, man.
For sure.
In terms of bickering back and forth, because Tom Brady, I think, has little to no control in that offense.
Yeah, minimal. And I think part of the problem with the back and forth from Bruce is, like, look at, like, the Bucs Facebook page, look at, like, comments, and this is something I do often whenever I'm just kind of checking out teams. the fan base too. I mean, it's very, probably 40% just trash Brady and like, oh, why do we bring him? I thought he was a GOAT. We're paying him $40 million. Da, da, da. Like that is
like aside from a couple of bad games.
Yeah, why would I want to perform?
You could throw him in the MVP conversation aside from a couple of bad games.
Yeah, I mean, arguably from the start, people thought Brady's already outperforming Belichick and looked great. You know what I mean? Got weapons, but the problem is just, and I knew from the start, and I think if you go back to when he signed, Tim and I said Bruce would be his worst issue down there, and that would be the reason that they don't succeed would be solely because of him. It's just not a good mix. There's just not that relationship like Bill and Brady had. It's just there's no freedom. There's a lot of blaming. There's no accountability because at the end of the day, he wants to keep his job. And if you have a superstar team that's not performing, who do you blame? Mm-hmm. So, Blake, I'd love to get your point on what you think with the Bucs. And
I didn't mean to cut you off, Blake. I literally wanted to rant about Bruce Arians because I hate head coaches in professional sports throwing their players under the bus. Yeah. I really do.
I absolutely hate Bruce Arians right now with what he's doing with Tampa Bay, too, because it's not Brady. Brady's performing well. And now you can look at the deep ball numbers, and the deep ball numbers are not phenomenal, but they're not picking and choosing when to throw the deep balls correctly. You have talent to be getting vertical. Evans, Godwin, and Antonio Brown can all be decent vertical threats. And the problem is it's so predictable. He's under a lot of pressure on these deep passes. It makes no sense. And the problem is, yes, it's play calling, and it's a different philosophy in the play calling. It's ego right now with Bruce Arians. He doesn't want to concede to what Tom Brady might want to do, and personnel, too. Having Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette as your Danny Woodhead type of backs back there is not going to work. I mean, that's just not going to fly. So they have personnel to be successful, but maybe Brady needs to realize we can't run exactly the same offense that I ran here. You're seeing miscommunication with the wide receivers that he didn't have with the Gronk and an Edelman in his prime. And you're also seeing just stupid play calling sometimes where it makes no sense. It's 100% on Arians. If Brady does have another year out of him after this year, which I assume he does, he doesn't look washed at all.
It's a 2-year contract, so, I mean, with the COVID year and everything like that, I mean, you give Brady a full training camp with these guys and to try and develop a little bit more,
Even still, though, I don't know, because you're talking about, best receivers in the league, right? If you trade
your best receiver, that's the best.
Talent-wise, it's
easily the best receiver
with some of the receiving core he has. You shouldn't need training camp, right? So you didn't make a mid-season trade and Godwin comes in, he should learn the playbook within a couple weeks because that's what you expect out of him. So I think that's the counter-argument there. And a lot of it is, I mean, exactly like Blake said, coaching, man. They're trying to, run the New England scheme, a scheme that's been ran for endless amount of times and a scheme that many teams know how to play against. They don't have any kind of, self-identity of what Tampa is. And they just try to emulate, Fournette, you get that, LeGarrette Blount feeling. And it's just, the things they try to emulate and, who they try to plug and play just doesn't work right. They need to figure out what they have and come up with their own scheme and come up with something that, most defenses aren't prepared for. That's exactly what Baltimore did, and that's why they were so effective last season is because you had, stuff that no one runs. And, then you get into the Bills and what they run now and just teams becoming, something new and different to where, you're not predictable. Right now they come out, you know what they're going to run. You get Tony Romo calling the game, you know what they're going to run.
Yeah, very predictable. And also, the one thing that the greatness in Tom Brady that I think of is you essentially have your offensive coordinator on the field, right? Him and Josh McDaniels were the same guy. They were, thinking telepathically together. Now you don't have that with what Arians is throwing out there. And I think if you just want Brady to be a pure thrower of the football, which he's kind of turning into right now, he's not going to succeed like that, and he's never really succeeded like that, especially in the past 10 years. He needs to be cerebral and pick this defense apart, which isn't being allowed to happen right now.
Yeah, I mean, the way they're playing him, it seems like they shouldn't have went after Stafford or, obviously his contract wasn't up, but, they want a guy like Stafford who, doesn't really complain, doesn't give much of an opinion. He's ran out the same crappy team for how many years, doesn't complain, rides it out, and just does what's asked of him. That's what they want, but that's not who they drafted. And then on top of it is when you get Brady in his later years, he has a legacy. He's got a company that's founded upon him and the GOAT, persona and the how I'm going to play till whatever age and TB12 method, all this that he has to basically protect with how he plays on the field. So when you limit him of doing that, it's not going to end well. It's different to just pay a plug-and-play guy that'll go out there and throw touchdowns and maybe give you a couple picks, but he'll do what you ask. You pick the leader, and you're not allowing him to lead.
I think that's where you kind of separate, like, the, decent, okay, good coaches from, like, the great coaches, right? So you have Bruce Arians, I feel like, he's run the same offense his entire coaching career, right? You know exactly what he runs, and he's so stuck in his ways, and he doesn't cater to the talent that he has around him.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, so what separates him, and he's so stuck in his ways, and the Steelers, I think this year especially, are a perfect example. Fitchner has done a great job with that offense, catering to the talent that that Ben Roethlisberger has around him, right? With James Conner in the run game, you can definitely have a focal point on that. And then you draft receivers based on Ben's playing style with Claypool, and they got Washington, and Juju is those three guys right now are playing like number one receivers. That trio of receivers there. And then you bring in a decent tight end that can get it done and run block from time to time and still be a vertical threat with Eric Ebron. You have that. He is changing up his styles and game plan week by week by week, catering to the talent that he has and based on the opponent that he's facing. And Arians doesn't do that, man. You see the same type of offense just methodically week after week after week. And, I mean, sometimes it'll work, and if he finds something that works in the game, like, he'll stick with it, obviously. But when he struggles and when the Bucs struggle, you can tell the first, 5 or 10 minutes of watching the Bucs offense, you'll tell if they're going to have a successful offensive day or not.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You will.
And it kind of brings up, my next point I was going to make is, they're not versatile by any means. And I think what comes with great coaching, right, is New England. So, you lose against a team like the Texans, right? So, Bill O'Brien gets fired.
Denver,
Bill O'Brien gets fired.
Niners.
They kind of just run a makeshift offense. You don't really have
taking a last-second field goal to beat the Jets.
Yeah, but I mean, the problem is you don't have a game plan, right? There's not a lot you can roll out against a team that isn't kind of developed any kind of real technique. They're just kind of playing football. So there's a difference there. But when you go up against, the Dolphins, or you have a close game against the Bills in Seattle, or you go and you beat Arizona, and you go out and you beat Miami. So when you have, an actual team you can prepare for and execute against, you're going to do well. The problem with Tampa is, okay, we beat the Saints, so what are we going to do? We're going to do everything we did the first time we played them. We're going to do it again. And then you get blown out because they know what you're going to run. You don't change it. You don't come out with anything different. You show the same cards, and you get trashed on prime time because you didn't come out with any kind of preparation or any kind of different style at all. And they've done it all year.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And with that, we're going to hit this break real quick. I think I might roll it into the next one, too. Blake, feel free to stick around, man. We're going to keep going. We'll dive a little bit more into the rest of the NFL, too.
Yeah.
So give us a call. We still have an open phone line, folks, 508-222-1320. We'll be right back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Welcome back. No. Come on, bring back the memories for you, Nick.
That's called
going back to
PTSD.
School. Come on, man.
That's called
bringing
PTSD.
back the memories.
That's what that's called.
Ah, darn. Oh, well, I tried. All right. So you got your lock of the week yet? Got your lock of the week?
I think we do.
All right, Blake. What we like to do every week here, buddy, is we are a betting radio show here. We love to stick our fingers in some parlays and stuff like that, and we like to give a little lock of the week to secure some money for you. So, Nick, what do you got for me, buddy? What is our lock of the week?
I think we're gonna do a first here.
A first?
A first for this season.
Oh yeah.
I think we're gonna put the Pats on the lock of the week this week.
You're putting the Patriots on a lock of the week against the Chargers, huh?
I think I'm gonna.
What's on the money line or the spread?
It's even, so it's 0. So it's either way you play it, it's dead even.
Oh, so it's
Pats
dead even.
are favored on the money line, only at minus 115. So we'll go ahead and take that, and then we'll take the Saints beating Atlanta minus a 2.5.
They're only at minus 2.5.
Minus 2.5.
All right.
Smells like a trap game.
So the quarterback.
So the two-way parlay.
Tight end quarterback.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. But I have faith in that.
So what's the winnings like?
So it's basically your general. It's 2.49. So you're gonna just over double your money. Okay. So if you bet 40, you're gonna take home 99.81.
Okay, that's not bad.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I feel the New Orleans vibe. I think they're playing well, coaching well.
What's the deal with the Washington Steelers game? Is that canceled?
No,
or postponed?
Moving it. They can't cancel
Tuesday.
it.
Tuesday? Is it Tuesday? Okay.
Last I heard.
No. Cowboys Ravens is Tuesday. They're playing it Monday. It looks like at 2 p.m.
Oh, okay.
My time.
Okay.
2 p.m. Pacific.
Okay, so 5.
Yeah, 5.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. They can't take a bye because
they already took one.
Steelers already have it taken.
Yeah, they did.
So,
it'd
be interesting. But no, I mean, I mean, the Saints game definitely smells like a trap game. It's got that vibe to it. Lock of the week is 4-2. By the way, update. We got slaughtered last week because I don't know why I took Vegas and Vegas got blown out by Atlanta.
Okay,
so Atlanta might come back to bite me 2 weeks in a row.
Okay, this is kind of where I kind of wanted to ask you something, because I've listened to Blake's podcast already, so I already know what his answer is kind of sort of going to be. How do you feel about Taysom Hill for the Saints right now, Nick?
As far as like would I play him? Or?
Like how's he look? Like, I mean, it's only 2 games, so who's he faced so far? He's faced the Broncos, right?
And the Falcons.
And the Falcons. So the Broncos had a college wide receiver converted quarterback, like fifth string, literally a Vince Papale.
Yeah, a guy that started throwing
that you just threw in. Okay, so whatever. And then you had the Falcons. How do you feel about Taysom Hill?
I mean, he hasn't really faced much challenge. Hard to really gear that up.
2-0's 2-0, but.
Yeah, but is it though? I mean,
do you trust Jameis Winston to step in there and actually?
Yeah, I mean,
be more of a spark for this offense.
Yeah, I think that's the guy I would have went with.
Yeah,
I was surprised they didn't. I think a lot of people were surprised they didn't. I don't know. I just as much as Winston, sucked as far as throwing a ton of picks. Mentally, he was always in it. Performed well, executed well. He's a pretty good visual player against defenses. And there's just a lot of traits I feel like you get with him that you don't get with Taysom Hill. Granted, maybe you run into pick trouble, but I mean, you didn't have half the team you have now in Tampa when he was there. So you get premier receivers. You got Kamara. You can run a lot of safe screen passes and play a safe ball game and perform effectively against the defense. Whereas with Taysom Hill, I mean, I feel like it's kind of just, similar to as if you put any other starting quarterback out there. I don't Herbert or whoever you put out there. To me, it's very similar.
Okay.
I feel like you're missing out on experience and a visual skill set when you don't play Winston.
Okay. Interesting. So, I'm trying to think of how to word this. Taysom Hill has been a Saint for a while now. He's 31, right? And he's been with that team since the beginning. Mm-hmm. And obviously they use him in a variety of different ways to the point where I don't think Taysom Hill would be part of an NFL on any other NFL team other than the Saints at this point. After seeing what he did against Atlanta, he actually, I think, had a pretty decent game against Atlanta. I think he had a fumble in that game, so he had a turnover. But, I mean, hang on, let me pull this up. Yeah. He was 18 of 23 for 233, right? No touchdowns, no picks. And he ran 10 times for 49 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, I mean, with that Atlanta game, I think he looked pretty solid. He made some pretty decent throws. I mean, but again, I think it comes down to that trust factor with Jameis Winston that Sean Payton just doesn't trust him. I think the previous years, especially last year, had a lot to do with it. I mean, when he throws 30 picks in a season, like there's something to be said about that.
Yeah,
right?
For me,
the
though,
trust
I think
in the system, and I think Taysom Hill, like if he's at least in this Atlanta game, he showed a capability to throw the ball on the same level that Winston could probably do. And Hill can probably add that other dimension to the run game that Jameis Winston couldn't. That's the only reasoning I can really think.
I mean,
Winston's more of your pure quarterback, of course, yes.
But he can. I feel like he would put up the same amount of yardage or touchdowns.
So, I mean, I totally understand.
I can see him running for 50 yards.
Your point, and I know Blake is irate that Winston's not playing. I totally understand his point.
I think the problem is, look, I can see if you go with Atlanta and you run a safe play with Hill, but whatever trust factor you have, no doubt in my mind that Winston shouldn't have played against Denver. You have a team that is not going to perform offensively. You pretty much know it going into it, right? So, but then you start playing and you see that they're not performing offensively. Even the second half, he should have been out there.
Right.
I don't care what any quarterback does in camp or whatever thought process you have behind what you do. When you have a chance to put him out, you put him out. When you're playing a team with no offense who struggled to put up 3 points without, Saints defense really didn't need to try.
That's another thing we don't talk about. This Saints defense is one of the best in the league.
Yeah.
Top 3.
You have a safety net for
You got
defense.
Steelers, you got Colts, you got Saints. I think those are your top 3 defenses in this league right now. The Saints defense is out of their minds.
Yeah, huge
right
turnaround.
Now.
They started rough.
Mm-hmm.
They started rough, and you know when that flip switched?
The Bucs game.
Tampa Bay. Once they played that Tampa Bay game, and the number one thing I think that switched this defense around was defensive line play. Cam Jordan, Trey Hendrickson, those guys up front have been playing like absolute dogs the last couple of weeks.
And
it's
and it's helping the back end too.
Huge against those NFC quarterbacks.
It's helping that back end so much.
NFC quarterbacks especially hate the rush. Right? So especially now, and
you can't run on them. You can't run on the Saints. You can't.
Yep.
Nope. There's not a lot you can do when everything is going right. However, they have guys that you can exploit, right? You can take advantage of CJ Gardner-Johnson. You can take advantage of Janoris Jenkins. There are guys you can take advantage of, but when you're elevating factors like Cam Jordan, like DeMario Davis, like Marcus Williams, like Marshawn Lattimore are playing elite, nobody can hang with those guys.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Amen.
Yeah,
I know.
It's I don't know. It kills me. I don't see the downside of playing him. Worst case
with Taysom.
No,
or Winston.
I mean, especially against Broncos.
Yeah.
The worst case, he comes out and he throws 2 picks and he turns it over to
do you really go into this Broncos game playing literally a 5th-string quarterback?
Well, that's what
thinking
I'm saying.
you're going to lose.
Well, that's exactly. So
this is your time. This is time for Sean Payton to experiment and see what he's got with Winston.
Exactly, 100%. Your worst case scenario is we're going to send him out and he's going to throw back-to-back picks, or he's just going to tank. And he's going to turn it over to a team that can't perform offensively with a 5th-string quarterback going up against one of the best defenses in the league. What are you scared about?
I mean, he's got to cakewalk almost the rest. So you got the Falcons and the Eagles. And then, if you keep Taysom Hill, if Taysom Hill is your guy, the game that's going to show what he can really do is Kansas City.
And I don't think he sees that game.
In 3 weeks. So not this week, not the weekend. So 3 weeks. You got the Chiefs and then the Vikings. Vikings aren't a cakewalk.
No.
They're not a sleeper, man. They'll put up points on you,
and
as long as Kirk Cousins doesn't crap himself, they're a competitive team.
Very, very similar to New England.
If Taysom Hill is the quarterback, I have no doubt in my mind that Minnesota beats them.
Yeah. I'm not doubting
that. That's the problem with the Saints right now. this isn't, you're not the Broncos in the 90s. You're not going to win with Terrell Davis carrying you in 2020 NFL. It makes no sense. You're not going to win a Super Bowl with Taysom Hill. Why don't you throw Jameis out there for these 2 games that you should be able to win, see what he's got. If he's horrible, then you get in a situation where we need Drew Brees back if we want to win a Super Bowl.
Yep.
With the cap space they're in right now, they don't have a future. They need to win now. So Jameis Winston gives you a chance to win a Super Bowl. Taysom Hill gives you a chance to be a fifth-string quarterback. Justin, who I do the podcast with, he writes for the Saints and everything. He said that if you switch the quarterbacks in this game, so if you gave the Saints, the fifth-string practice squad guy, the result would probably be the same.
Yep. Oh, I'm with you, especially in that Denver game. Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all.
You have such a good defense. It's a safety net for whatever you want to do offensively. Whatever you want to do.
I feel like Jameis Winston just has a much higher IQ
for
reading defenses in the game because Taysom Hill hasn't had that opportunity, and the opportunities he's had with the Saints is literally just bring him in like 2 or 3 times a game to run an RPO here and there.
Experience is experience, but not to cut you off, but through coaching or through playing, right? So I'm a big dude, but typically I played somewhere on the defensive line, and there's so many roles that.
What timetable do we have on Brees anyway? What's the timetable on him?
It was originally 6 weeks.
Is it? So he could be back.
He's supposed to be back for the KC game.
Is
supposed to be?
Is he? Okay.
If all goes,
a 40-year-old man breaking 11.
So when that came out, I had my doubts too, and I said I doubt it. But
honestly, if they keep
based on the timetable given, he's supposed to be back. I don't see that happening. Maybe he's back, not full health, and they have to figure out how the hell they're going to protect him. But I mean, it's just again, I think if you go into the Chiefs game with Hill as your guy, you're done for. So I don't know why.
I'm with you.
I don't know why you didn't try now to have a fallback in Winston. Worst case, like we said, he tanks it, and you have to then give Hill the real shot, right?
Right.
But, I mean, you could have something great, and despite whatever they see behind the scenes, you could have something great. I mean, I don't know. The guy went and had eye surgery, and maybe that was a real issue. Maybe he's the same quarterback. Whatever the case may be, if you don't give him a shot, you're never going to know. So why are you paying him the money to be there?
How invested are the Saints in trying to get this top seed in the NFC? Because they're at number 1 right now.
Have to.
So if they're invested in this and they keep rolling, you have to get
the top seed, especially with
Sean Payton's not a dumb guy. He has to realize that when you get into those nitty-gritty games with KC and Minnesota back-to-back, Jameis Winston gives you the best chance to win those games.
Winston was that
has to be apparent.
Winston was the core reason they got some of the wins they did prior to having these studs in Tampa. I mean, the reason they didn't go 0-16 for a couple of years was because of him. He pulled out these wins, and he was really the sole reason.
He was also a sole reason why they lost a lot of games too. But
that is,
that's besides the point.
No, I mean to an extent, yeah. No, you're not wrong, but it's just you're different. You got a different offense in New Orleans.
Yeah,
I mean compared to what he had in Tampa. I mean, you have such a safety. You have one of the best receivers in the league. You have the best receiving back in the league. You have so many safety nets. So you have a fairly decent offensive line. You got plenty of good guys around you. You got a ton of experience all around you. Great coaching. That's where he needs to be. Mm-hmm. Because where he was before, terrible coaching, terrible offensive line, terrible game plans. Just how do you thrive there? So you're putting him in a situation where he should be great, and you don't explore that. It just seems crazy to me. Especially paying him the money you're paying him to be there.
I think the interesting thing with Winston is we have this idea of him as a gunslinger, right? A Fitzpatrick type. But we've never seen Jameis Winston in an actual very good offense coached by very good people. What happens when you put him in a good system? Maybe he doesn't throw 30 turnovers, maybe because he actually has a plan. You get it to Michael Thomas on slants, you hit Kamara out of the backfield, and you actually have an arm, so you can utilize guys like Traquan Smith and Emmanuel Sanders.
Yep, exactly. And Kamara is the huge, strong point of why he'd be good there. Because he didn't have that in Tampa. Yeah. Most teams in the league don't have anything like that. He is your offensive safety net for anybody. Never mind a guy like Winston. So, like, for Hill to come out, like, yeah, it's great. You have Kamara. Like, you have guys that can kind of save your rear. But, like, you know, you're putting an actual decent football mind out there. You really should explore that because you really don't know what Drew Brees is going to be like recovering. So your worst case is you might go into, without a top seed, you might go into, you know, an early playoff game without Drew Brees. It could happen if a couple weeks of a timeline get extended. It's very close. Even if you go into a team like KC and you get really banged up, you're going to knock morale off when you very well could have a viable option to very closely scratch out a W there.
Yep.
If Tampa Bay can get close to getting a win on KC, then the Saints should have no problem doing that.
I 100% think that if you tell me you're going to get the Drew Brees that you got in the playoffs the last 2 years, the last 3 years we could even go, he hasn't performed great in the playoffs. You know, defenses have just, you know, said, okay, you know, we'll let you do whatever you want to do and we'll tackle. If you told me I'm going to get that Drew Brees versus I got a 50-50 shot at Jameis Winston who's going to make stuff happen and elevate the offense versus Jameis Winston who's going to tank, with the situation I'm in now, I'm going to win now, win this season mode if I'm in New Orleans.
Yep.
I'm going with Jameis Winston, even if I have a Drew Brees that's coming back from a rib injury, if I've seen any type of potential whatsoever from Winston.
Yeah, I tend to agree there. I feel like even more so, like, since the Super Bowl win, I just, like, Drew Brees, he always puts up good numbers, but they don't perform when they need to perform. And that's their problem. It's like they always, like, yeah, winning is cool, but, like, from, I guess, even like
they've kind of, I mean, the past two seasons in the playoffs, they've kind of gotten shafted by a really bad call.
So, they've gotten shafted.
Throw that in there a little, but I mean.
A miracle.
Yeah. But
they've gotten shafted, but some of the games where they got shafted, realistically, that team shouldn't have been a one-call kind of game. So, I mean,
I know that. I know. But
I mean, take it as you want, and it kind of is what it is. And a lot of teams get screwed across the board, and you know whether it happens more for them or whatnot is tough. But I think you got to put yourself in the position to not have one call decide your entire game or season.
What it boils down to, Winston deserves a shot to see what he can do.
Why is he there?
Plain and simple.
It makes no sense not to.
I don't know why he's there.
Okay, so if I told you right now, you have a lottery ticket that can win you $10 and you only have a 25% chance of getting the 10, or you can get $1,000 at a 50-50 shot. Yeah. Which one are you taking?
That's
I'm gonna go with 1,000 every time.
It's a no-brainer.
I like keep echoing it, but I just don't know why you pay him to be there.
I'm just trying to think what reasoning Sean Payton has.
I mean, I feel like
there's two that I thought of. He's either hurt and they're just not telling whatever he's hurt with right now, or two, he has looked god awful in practice, like god awful. Like he should be a practice squad quarterback.
The trust that Peyton has in him is just super low. That's the only thing I can think of.
Again, the other problem, like,
because Peyton's not a dumb guy. We're explaining it like right on paper in black and white, like Winston.
No, I mean I'm not like saying Peyton's
can
idiot.
Be this guy. There has to be something going on
absolutely.
Behind the scenes. Like he doesn't trust him.
No,
if he's not hurt, there's no trust.
And I'm sure he looked terrible there. Stidham looked great in practice. Looked terrible in the game, right? He can, and you have to think of the guys he's going up against in a practice. I mean, the Saints defense is nothing to argue with. So if he's thrown against the actual Saints defense, he might not look great. And I'm not undercutting like him poorly performing, but like there are people that don't practice well that play games well. And without giving him the ample shot, then what are you doing?
What, Allen Iverson was like that, right? Well, I talk about practice.
Yeah.
You talk about practice.
Exactly. There's been time and time again players that don't practice well but show up on game day. So I just don't know why you would not at least attempt to put him out there. Even if you're scared to do it against Atlanta, you definitely 100% do it against Denver. Like that seems like just a gimme. That's a free opportunity. That's like, here's a free scratch ticket. See what happens. That's literally the equivalent to it. It's like, what is the downfall there? Nothing. Because you're not going to lose to that team no matter how hard you try.
Yeah.
So, to me, it's just like, it's asinine to do. I don't know.
Maybe he wants to, I mean, I don't justify this at all if this is what he's doing. It seems stupid to me, but maybe he wants to, like, throw Jameis Winston out there as his wild card once he gets into, like, week 16, 17 in the playoffs. Oh, teams haven't seen him yet. Maybe that's what he's trying to do, but
I just don't see enough dynamic. Yeah. I mean, if that was the case, I don't know what dynamic like he would bring that the Saints offense, wouldn't show. Generally, they've run the same, for the most part, foundational offense for the last however many years. So I don't really know. I mean, maybe because, you see it in New England here and there where they just bring out some craziness, Edelman throwing touchdown passes or, whoever. So sometimes you see it, but I don't know. I feel like even still, like, even if you start him as just a plug-and-play quarterback, you still have those hidden plays in your back pocket that they don't expect down the line.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's, I don't know, the whole situation's weird. I never in a million years thought Hill would be a starter, though.
Oh, God. What is this? What is the NFL doing? They're putting the Broncos and Chiefs on Sunday Night Football this week? Oh, my God.
Well, I mean, they're very minimal on what they can do.
Oh, jeez. I thought last week was bad for football, man. This week looks even worse.
Yeah, they're minimal, man. They cater.
Quarterbacks are back, though. You get Drew Lock, who is going to either throw 4 interceptions or 4 touchdowns, and that Broncos defense is criminally underrated.
I'll agree with that. But, I mean, yeah, Jesus. Oh, man. Kansas City's getting 13.5. Yikes.
Yeah.
I would pick Denver to cover that any day. I have a lot more faith in Denver than a lot of people do.
Divisional game, too. Don't underestimate divisional games.
Divisional now, primetime spot.
Here's another one. Houston plus 3.5 against Indy. I kind of like that, too. Ever since O'Brien got canned, Houston's kind of been playing a lot better.
I'm telling you.
He's been playing like the best quarterback in football.
Yep. And that, like I said before,
I might take him on the money line.
Yeah, like I said before, that's why teams beat New England. Is like you get these teams where they lose their head coach or they don't have a game plan and they just play football. They go out and they play.
Especially
with
a guy like Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, when you just let them go out and do their thing, you're not expecting anything, right? So whatever idea you come up with, you do it and you run it and you try it because no one's expecting anything at this point in the season, and. So, I mean, that's that. I mean, look at Will Fuller. They basically announced that he's out for the season. It's a 6-game suspension. If they were to clinch, he would be back in next year. Or he could be back in for, an AFC ship game. So, you count the season dead already, so you might as well just...
Pretty much.
So they don't have any expectation.
True that.
Quick talking point, too, and the Will Fuller thing's funny. He's free agency, and now whatever team gets him, he's going to miss first game of the season. If they don't get anything in playoffs.
So, he'll miss 5 games this yeur, right?
Yeah.
Because there's 5 left, right?
Yeah, so he'll miss one of next season unless they clinch playoffs.
So hey, New England.
Take that with whoever.
Hey.
Does that affect his market value? Probably.
Yeah, Green Bay could use somebody opposite Devontae, too.
Well, Green Bay dodged a bullet, not traded for him.
Lazard is decent.
Green Bay dodged a bullet, not trading for him.
I don't know. I think Godwin and Fuller would look really good in Patriots uniforms. That's just me. At the end of the year. Those are your 2 signings right there. Boom.
Need a tight end.
GM Bill won't do it, though. GM Bill won't
I think Godwin will come to New England.
You think so?
Yeah. Godwin is so underused in Tampa Bay.
I love Godwin.
Godwin is like the definition of what Tom Brady wants, but they don't utilize him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you give more to guys like Evans. Even Brown, you see a lot.
He has that versatility too. He can play in and out.
He's a slot route. Very I could take a hit.
He runs every route.
Yeah, and he could take a hit. Like he
knows how to brace for hits.
He's the more brolic Edelman. Is the definition.
But he's taller.
Yeah, and he's the definition of what Tom Brady wants in a player. But they just don't utilize him. And again, that falls on Bruce Arians, where it's like he should be one of your sole guys running key routes.
He was utilized well last year.
He should be your third and 10 receiver. He's your guy. Mm-hmm. He's the guy you want to put the faith in to get that ball and to have that certain little slot route set up. This is what we have to do. He's your guy, but they don't utilize him like that. So I don't see why he would stay there. There's no way he's going to stay there. And maybe he comes to New England. I don't know.
We'll see.
I'd love to see him here. Him, a decent tight end, and you got to sign some pass rushes up front. You need some big boys.
I think you need front 7 is definitely. We have no linebackers, man.
Well, you need a linebacker too.
Jawan Bentley is a sorry excuse for an NFL linebacker.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
I mean, you gotta spend a little. You're gonna get like
Winovich shows glimpses. here and there. Like I think he had a solid game against Arizona.
Yeah, you'll get 4 or 5.
We had a
solid
free agent. I attribute our game plan more in that Arizona game than I do the actual play.
Yeah, that was all game plan.
Like in terms of our pass rush not going past Kyler Murray, keeping him contained in the pocket, making sure he had nowhere to go.
It was everything they set out to do against Baltimore. The only difference was coaching. So when you ran it against Baltimore, you had a good first half last year, they adapted. New England, then it didn't work, right? So then you run the cover 3 again against Arizona, but at no point did they ever change their game plan. They ran the same thing because they didn't go into the half getting blown out. So they thought, yeah, we'll just keep going. You were way too close.
That's always been the Achilles. Yeah, that's also been the Achilles heel for our defense this season. Is being stuck in those zone coverages
as
and
Arizona,
good quarterbacks picking it apart.
The problem is you cannot let New England go close into halftime because they're a team that's outscored 58-26 or something like that in the first quarter.
Oh, first quarter's been absurdly awful.
You have a 30-point deficit gap. You can't go into half at a close game and then not adapt, especially. New England's going to win that 9 times out of 10. And I think that is the key difference maker between proper coaching and just guys that have good players but don't know how to coach them right.
Mm-hmm.
And Arizona's got a lot to learn. Ton of talent, but they have a lot to learn because their window's going to be small too. Where you look at even like KC, where you're going to run into big contracts, and before you know it, you don't have money to spend. So,
amen. Oh, okay.
Well, let's get some final thoughts.
Final thought? Oh, God.
Final
is it really?
Thoughts. Yes, that time.
Oh, son of a... Okay.
Building block.
All right. Final thoughts, Blake, before we get off the air here, buddy? Thanks for joining us, man. We definitely...
Thank you guys so much for having me. Do you mind if I shout out Justin's Twitter real quick?
Absolutely.
Go for it, man. We are all about free shout-outs here. We always try to help.
His Twitter is... I don't know if capitalization matters in tweets or anything.
You said he writes for the Saints?
MVP. No, he doesn't write for the Saints, but he writes covering the Saints. It's dish.com if you want to take a look at his work. His Twitter is Talk MVP. Go follow him definitely because he posts all the podcast links, so that way you don't accidentally go listen to the other Stack in the Box. I found out after I already produced 5 or 10 podcasts that somebody else already had that name, so I was like, dang. But yeah, so I think that's all the advertising I got to do. If you go follow Justin, everything else you need will be through there. So Talk MVP at Twitter.
Yeah, I like the handle.
Justin Dunbar at Talk MVP. Yep.
I like the handle.
For Prospects Live. Yep. Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, he's a very good baseball writer, too, if you're a big baseball fan or anything.
Okay.
And then in terms of looking ahead, quite honestly, I think a very sneaky lock would be Tennessee over the Browns.
Yeah, I like that lock, too.
So that's what I was going to go. I was going to go with that, too.
You think the Browns could cover at 5.5?
Nah.
No.
Not the way they're playing, man.
Denzel Ward is out. Denzel Ward is out.
Yeah.
No. Ward is out.
Have a game.
See, it's funny. Yep. It's funny you said that, too.
Henry's going to run all
It's funny you said that because, I literally said, I should do Tennessee.
Yeah. Justin Dunbar here, a little fun fact. Owner of MVPSportsTalk.com.
Also, he's the guy why we couldn't get that website.
That's why we probably couldn't get the website.
It was small world.
So we just
MVP Sports Talk Radio.
Yeah, so we're MVPSportsTalkRadio.com. Just do that.
Yeah. Well, we were going to do. I think we did. I don't remember what our website's called, but because we haven't worked on it, honestly, really on social media. But that's funny because we tried that
crazy,
name
right?
And we couldn't get it.
That's funny.
Small world.
That's really cool.
But that's cool though. I mean, like I said, it works out well. That's cool. But
yeah,
I don't know. Oh man,
it's funny though because like I said, I knew I wanted to take Tennessee, but I think I'd switch it up this week. I feel like Atlanta's
I could take Tennessee again. I like the 5.5, so I'd put Tennessee at the 5.5.
See on here it's 6.
I don't know. Arizona LA is the game I've literally been looking at.
I was very surprised to see Arizona be the underdog there. I feel like
I'm not surprised.
The Rams are good.
The Rams are good, but I feel like they get a lot more credit because they beat the Bucs.
That's true, but they also they had another game.
What Jared Goff are you going to get?
Well, see,
that's the thing.
That's the issue.
That's the story.
Yeah.
That's
great team.
Great
Sean
team.
McVay.
I love McVay.
Like nobody else. Great team. First off,
I'll tell you what. For a parlay,
watching them in Hard Knocks was super impressed. So
Kyler,
I try not to
how big is that? that shoulder injury for Kyler?
I think he's
number
fine.
one.
I think he's fine.
How big is that? Because it definitely didn't show. He didn't show himself in the New England game. He was.
But I think a lot of that was
his first really genuinely bad game. A lot of that
was with containment, though. Like
the matchup. The thing with Arizona's offense, you take away Kyler's legs, you take away DeAndre Hopkins, they don't have much going.
Yep.
So
exactly.
And you're going to have Jalen Ramsey matched up on DeAndre Hopkins. You're going to have Aaron Donald, Leonard Floyd, criminally underrated this year. Michael Brockers, I don't actually know his status for this game, but you're going to have a lot of guys getting after the quarterback. I think it's going to be a very tough game.
Kind of the more I think about it, the more I see.
Don't sleep on those role guys around Hopkins either.
No, the more I think.
See, they have the role guys, they just don't utilize them.
See, I'm not.
I loved Andy and Isabella. I loved Isabella coming out of UMass. It's just they don't use them.
Isabella's good.
Isabella, I wanted.
Fitz has still got it.
The problem with Isabella,
Christian Kirk is one of the most underutilized guys in the league.
See, the problem with Isabella was exactly this, right? So it comes out Bill Belichick scouting him, wants him bad, and every team thinks like he's gonna come be himself and be an NFL receiver on his own. Bill Belichick wanted him because that's a molding that he can build on. Teams that stole the scouting and took him expected him to perform on his own. I think that was a downfall there. Whereas you get a guy that Belichick's like, that's what I want, and everyone's like, oh, Belichick wants him, he's going to be great, and they take him, and he can't do anything because you don't know how to coach him up. And then he doesn't fit your scheme.
So fast.
Yeah.
I hate that because he's one of my favorite. I loved him coming out. Thought he was going to be a very good gadget guy. Like, think Curtis Samuel.
He's got
you don't
great
expect
potential.
Curtis Samuel to. Yeah, he does.
Like, he should be their Julian Edelman to where, like, you have Larry Fitz and Hopkins running deep routes. You know, you put each of them on like a deep post or a deep like cut and go route, and you dump him across the middle on a slot. 9 times out of 10, you think of like, you know, what average linebacker or what safety is going to be covering him. They're not going to beat him on a route. Mm-hmm. So like the coverage it's like he should be utilized so much better. And again, that comes down to their coaching. So it just kills me. But the more I think about it, the more I like the Rams winning. Because Sean McVay is not an idiot. He's gonna take almost everything that the Pats did and implement it right there. The only thing I think they might struggle with is I don't think Jalen Ramsey is that great this year. He's good. I'm not underplaying him, but I think there's been a lot of routes where he got lucky on, where he's like tripped and fell, or
streaky,
or he's got like a 10-yard gap on him and he got lucky they didn't hit the pass. He's gotten very lucky many times where I don't think he'll get that lucky against Arizona. So if he's not on his best game, that's why they'll lose.
I'm with you. Well, one last thing before we go. So I've got a 3-way parlay here that's kind of intriguing. Right? Yeah. I'm going to go with Blake, and I'm going to take the Titans at -5.5. And then I'm going to take the Cards money line at +135. I think Kyler has a redemption game here. Statement game, kind of like what he did against Seattle. +135. And then I'm going to take the Niners over Buffalo. I think the Niners defense is going to give Josh Allen some problems. And I think the Niners can squeak that out on Monday night. So you got +105 on the Niners, +135 on Arizona, and then -110 for the Titans to cover at 5.5. $50 wins you 410, folks.
You're going to have to send me that.
Lock it in.
Send me that.
I'm using the wager site, but my cousin uses.
So I have it.
So, but now we start playing closing time in the background. Blake, thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure having you on, man.
Thank you guys
Absolutely.
so much for having me, man.
Please check out his podcast, Stack the Box. You can find it on Apple Music. You can find it on Spotify. You can find him as well on Patreon. Hopefully he'll join us again soon, maybe next week. Who knows? But as for Ryan here in studio with my boy Nick, Tim and Drew unfortunately couldn't join us tonight. And Mr. Blake, again, thank you for joining us. This is MVP Sports Talk Radio. Y'all have a good night.
Take it easy.